Why aren't Chronosauruses ruling the world? They're so cool and badass and dangerous. And we invented nukes. You know what? I think you have a good point there. I'm curious about this nice and normal Australian fish.
Australia. Easily one of the most beautiful countries on the entire planet.
It's actually quite pretty,
Got
yeah.
white sand beaches, meandering rivers, sprawling savannas, and tropical forests, making it a true nature paradise.
I saw a koala and I'm instantly triggered. You guys made me hate koalas. Congratulations.
And yet, there is one teeny tiny problem, which is that all of these beautiful places are inhabited by about the most messed up animals nature currently has in its arsenal.
Oh yeah.
Ranging from venomous everythings to giant predatory reptiles and fish that could remove a limb or two with ease. And while not exactly apocalyptic, Australia does have more animal deaths than even the USA, despite having 13 times less people and having a significantly higher level of healthcare for the average person. Therefore, if you ever take a vacation down under, just be a little mindful of where you step or swim. But, regardless of how it is now, you could—
Dude, I love seeing kangaroos just go crazy and attack people. It's so funny. That being said, I hope I will never get attacked by a kangaroo. I feel like now that I said that, all the kangaroos are definitely gonna target me if I'm ever in Australia.
take solace in the fact that Australia is actually much
He
more safe today
lost!
than it was in the
He
past.
fell.
As through time, it seems to have followed the rule where the farther you go back, the more messed up everything becomes. And I do mean everything. For example, just 50,000 years ago, the Australians were already dealing with the largest land lizard ever, giant snakes, marsupial predators—
Was the giant lizard, was that a Komodo dragon or something else? I'm actually not
terrestrial
sure.
crocs that could sprint across land. However, despite everything Australia has thrown at the world during the Cenozoic, none of it compares to what it was like during the Mesozoic, as it was then that Australia was the perfect breeding ground for nightmarish animals.
Are you telling me that Australia somehow was even worse at one point in time? How?
And united terrestrial, avian, and aquatics apex predators into just one single place, the Eromanga Sea. While the continent today is surrounded by water, it is for the most part still a very dry piece of land, with only 4% of its surface being covered by water. Yet during the late Cretaceous, it was the opposite story, as at certain times, over 50% of the landmass was submerged by the Eromanga Sea, a vast ancient inland sea that had profound impacts on—
I was also thinking like Eromanga Sea sounds a bit sus. I was also like, unfortunate name, I don't know.
on Australia and its wildlife. Scientists believe that it was created during the early days of the Cretaceous, when warmer temperatures caused a rise in global sea levels, resulting in the ocean flooding Australia from the north and reaching all the way to
Oh,
Eromanga,
wow. There you go, Eromanga, Queensland. That is a crazy amount of water. I didn't think it would be that much.
which happens to be the furthest town from any coast, and the inspiration behind its name. Even for an inland sea, the Eromanga was extremely shallow, being just a few tens of meters or feet deep in some areas. But what it lacked in depth, it made up for in width, as it was over 2,000 kilometers, or 1,200 miles at its widest.
That's
And
a
all
lot
in
of
all,
kilometers.
was about the same size as the Sea of Japan, but looked nothing like it, as its waters were unusually muddy, stagnant, and for the Cretaceous, cold, with the most southern points possibly seeing near freezing temperatures during the winter.
So I'm assuming all of these things helped breed a bunch of insane creatures down there.
A result of Australia having a lower latitude at the time. And yet, this strange stagnant soup proved to be just what was needed for an explosion of horrific animals, as it created organic and iron-rich sediments, plus a variety of coastal habitats, attracting all sorts of life, leading to its waters and surrounding areas being just about the busiest place on the entire planet. Now,
Figured. I mean, yeah, it's Australia. At this point, I'm not surprised. Anything that they tell me, I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
throughout a good chunk of the Cretaceous, the Eromanga Sea wasn't a place you'd want to be, but some points were definitely worse than others, and it reached peak nopeness during the Albian stage, which took place between 113 and 100 million years ago. Given that it was
that's
the
a while.
Cretaceous, you might be thinking that if you fell into these murky waters, you'd be met with a titanic mosasaur, or perhaps two. But in reality, there was actually no mosasaurs at all in these waters, as they had not yet evolved. Instead, this inland sea had a very different top dog,
Teeth?
who would have given mosasaurs a good run for their money.
I feel like, to be fair, I will give it to Australia. The character design on these monsters, great creature design. Like, they look cool.
And were arguably scarier, the Plesiosaurs.
Plio.
While mainly being known as the kings of the Jurassic, the early Cretaceous did have a few still roaming around, and Eromanga in particular was a hotspot, with multiple kinds being present. Based on pure looks alone, they did have a bit of an edge over mosasaurs.
I think they look kind of cool. They look a little bit like dorky alligators, but I guess their body shape is a little bit different than that.
Sporting giant wide skulls lined with razor-sharp teeth and robust but streamlined bodies equipped with 4 large flippers that help them maneuver the shallow seas.
Okay, I'm sorry. They look not good anymore. Their face look kind of cool, but what's that turtle-ass body? You're supposed to be a cool-looking predator thing. What is this? He looks like he just farted and is proud of it. Now I think the same thing after seeing the body, yes.
With eerie grace and speed. And among the bunch that called these prehistoric waters home, the most abundant, who also happened to be by far the biggest and baddest, was the Chronosaurus.
Chronosaurus.
Who was one of the biggest pliosaurs to ever live, and the biggest predator within the Eromanga, with adults reaching 11 meters or 36 feet long.
They're still so dorky. Their head looks so cool and dangerous, and their body is kind of weird looking.
And weighing over 15 tons thanks to the robust
Oh,
build.
wow, they're big though. Look how small we are. There's a human. There's a human next to this weird ass big turtle, and it's tiny. You know what? Maybe I should respect him a bit more. What if they come back like in Jurassic Park and then he's gonna fuck me up because of the shit that I said about him online? Can't have that.
Which actually made them heavier than the later giant mosasaurs. And this might not have been its final form, as 2 titanic specimens suggest a theoretical size of up to 13 meters or 43 feet, akin to the length of certain gray whales.
Oh, see?
So naturally, everything on this apex predator's body matched its stature, with its flippers all being longer than the average NBA player is tall, and its skull reaching sizes greater than anything seen in dinosaurs,
That's a lot.
minus ceratopsids, with one specimen having a head a third longer than any known T-Rex skull.
Wow.
Each of these massive domes came with 6 pairs of pointed conical teeth that could be both recurved and lined with grooves, allowing for seamless deep punctures as it bit into prey. And because each tooth had a very wide base, paleontologists assume it was specialized in hunting large animals, even more so than other pliosaurs, as its teeth were unique amongst its family. And not to mention that its bite
Holy,
force was also insanely
so big.
powerful, with one test finding that an adult Chronosaurus could likely deliver over 27,000 newtons of force per
That sounds
bite,
like a lot.
which is, 18 times the power of a tiger's bite, and more than enough
Holy.
to crush or punch holes straight through tough flesh, muscles, and bones. And to the dismay of all that
Damn.
lived in this sea or dared to venture into it, Chronosaurus would have also had a massive appetite, as studies on its bone growth found an extreme level of metabolism which rivaled that of birds. Therefore, it's technically possible that each day, a large Chronosaurus needed to devour tons of food just to sustain itself.
Damn. Why aren't these people ruling the world? Why aren't Chronosauruses ruling the world? How did we get here? They're so cool and badass and dangerous. We invented nukes. You know what? I think you have a good point there. Why are we ruling the world? Nukes. Fair enough. You know what? I can see it.
And its metabolism let it stay in the most southern, coldest parts of the Eromanga Sea. Therefore, if you took a swim and felt a little bit chilly,
Humans learned to throw rocks, and the evolutionary arms race basically ended right there.
But can't monkeys throw rocks? Well, I guess monkeys can throw rocks, but then they can't build a nuke. We can throw rocks and build a nuke. I feel like that is a huge advantage over monkeys that we have.
you'd probably know it was time to leave. Its voracious appetite is actually reflected by a wide range of other animals who are found with either bite marks in their skeletons or located directly within the stomach of a Chronosaurus.
That's so funny. Imagine your whole ass fossil You die, you get eaten by this monster, and then thousands of years later, millions of years later, the freaking scientists find you inside of the belly of that guy. Like, that's, I don't want to say it's embarrassing. I feel like if anything, that's kind of cool. At least your death was remembered.
To date, confirmed victims include giant turtles, plesiosaurs, fish, squid, large marine reptiles that were 60% of its own size, and even dinosaurs. So simply
Holy!
put, the Chronosaurus did not care what you were, it just cared if you
It's
had meat.
hungry.
So Arby's, watch out. But its intense need for flesh ultimately created a lot more problems than it solved, with researchers noting that it had a very high juvenile mortality rate, with most specimens being immature and showing signs of cannibalism. The Chronosaurus's main obstacle might have been itself. The most prominent example of this was a 6-meter or 20-foot teenager, you could say, that was found with an eaten head. And I mean that literally, as the rest of its body was nowhere to be found.
What the hell?
This kind of behavior has led some to think of the Chronosaurus as a croc-like animal behaviorally that attacked virtually anything that it came across. So think modern saltwater crocs, but much, much bigger.
So that is why they died out. They just don't have the self-preservation skill. See, that's why they don't rule the world. That shark art kind of fucks. Yo, there's so much good shark art in here, I swear.
But
This
how
video
much
is
bigger,
great.
you ask? Well, let's ask. There we go. About 23 times heavier. Amazingly enough, despite its many intimidating traits and size, there were still predators out there willing to challenge its reign, even being known to take a bite out of it occasionally. Talk about the nerve. So, what carnivore would be crazy enough to try this?
Bigger dino with big teeth. Or something that's really fast and can outsmart it with agility.
Well, you only have to look at our own waters today, because the answer is sharks. Like some areas now, the Eromanga Sea was riddled with sharks, which was actually an uncommon trend for the time, as they hadn't fully re-established their dominance yet. But in the closed, cold waters of this inland sea, they sure had, and were known to be present in virtually every corner of it.
I think sharks have a great design. That's probably why they persevered and are still here now. I feel like they look very ergonomic. They have good teeth. I think they're just kind of made to
Among the
survive.
various kinds, the most successful and dominant were the lamniforms, better known as mackerel sharks, who, as you
Mackerel.
may know, are doing just fine. They are typically characterized by possessing 2 dorsal fins, an anal fin, 5 gill slits, and a mouth that extends behind the eye. And it's not unusual for these sharks to be quite feisty, leading to their scientific name, which means fish of prey. And their aggressiveness is further demonstrated by a Chronosaurus specimen that bore shark-shaped bite marks to its mandible. These particular set of bite marks were not fatal, and the victim in question was on the smaller side, meaning that sharks may have preyed upon the king in its youth. And sure enough, there are multiple young Chronosaurus specimens with shark bite marks on them.
So was that the real size? Just now, they weren't that much smaller, I guess. Aren't sharks older than trees? They're pretty fucking old, and look at them. They're still established and going strong, and humans even fear them and make horror movies about them. I think sharks are doing actually pretty great.
And it wasn't just the king that got nipped, as many large fish have also been found partially devoured by prehistoric jaws. And among the perpetrators in this bloodshed, the most guilty was a type of Cretaceous-like shark, which is terrible news if you know anything about the contemporary Western Interior Seaway, as then you'd understand that Cretaceous was an absolute monster, reaching Goliath sizes and being capable of staging strikes at over 70 kilometers or 43 miles per hour, using its giant razor-sharp teeth to cause catastrophic bleeding and trauma. And these teeth were so serrated and sharp that it's led to it being nicknamed the Ginsu shark, after the famous Ginsu knives. And while the Australian version might not have been the same Cretaceous species from America, it could still be a sister species or a closely related family member, and was, in true Australian fashion, even deadlier, having similar, albeit longer teeth and growing to be larger, with matured specimens.
Of course the ones in Australia would grow even larger, of fucking course.
Around 9 meters or 30 feet, while weighing over 6 tons, meaning it was one of the largest sharks to ever live, period, and makes the great whites of Australia today look like child's play.
They really look small in comparison now. when you know how big they used to be, it's kind of like, man, sharks, I guess, aren't that scary. They aren't what they used to be.
Success of sharks in the sea might have been due to their powerful senses, which theoretically helped them navigate the murky waters and gain an advantage against competition. Or it could have been just something to do with Eromanga Sea in general, as there did seem to be a pattern of animals doing well here that were not generally popping off elsewhere. And another example of this was a group of animals actually in the midst of their own undoing, the Ichthyosaurs.
Wait, I heard of those guys. Were they in Ark Survival Evolved? Sharks when Saturn was single? Please, they're older than the rings of Saturn. That's crazy. They went through some experimentation. I mean, Helicoprion experimented with having a buzzsaw for a mouth. Hey, can't go wrong with a buzzsaw, right? Have we considered this as humans, to have a buzzsaw as a mouth for a couple generations? I feel like we should evolve more. I feel like humans have been pretty similar for a couple of years. Feel like we could do something new again. Just a thought.
Where the rulers of the Triassic and large parts of the Jurassic, Ichthyosaurs had found themselves in a rather rut during the early Cretaceous, and were beginning a downwards trend that would unfortunately not stop, courtesy of climatic upheaval.
Rest in peace.
And yet, in the Eromanga Sea, some of them were making one last stand, thriving despite everything, and reaching sizes not seen since the Jurassic. And while not the sea's apex predators, Eromanga ichthyosaurs still had impressive diets, which included a diverse amount of fish, occasional marine reptiles, and lots of squid.
Hell yeah! Squid enjoyers!
Belly filled to the brim with belemnites that had been swallowed whole. While these guys were reptiles, they did bear quite a coincidental resemblance to dolphins and likely mirrored their agility and speed.
Dolphins!
With their length to depth ratio being between 3 and 5, which is the perfect amount to reduce water resistance and drag. They also possessed smooth skin, compact bodies, and large tail flukes.
They look kinda cute. I hope they weren't as much of an asshole as dolphins are. We're becoming taller. Is that the only thing we're doing? Can we have more cool evolutions?
All making them among the fastest swimmers in Australia.
Dude, okay, I'm sorry. They look goofy as hell from the front. From the side, crazy predator, monster of the sea, danger to fish and other animals alike. And from the front, I'm sorry, they're just a derpy little guy. Look at his face. I cannot take that face serious.
And about 20% faster than any other marine reptile in their environment. And if you took a swim, you'd expect to see a few kinds flying about. But it was one genus in particular that was on top, the Platypterygius. This genus was by a landslide the most common ichthyosaur, and made it big, specializing in deep diving, where it used its large eyes and toothy...
The focus on having a really big mouth, crazy. You want a species that used the same build forever with no change? Look at the horseshoe crab. Those fuckers are so one-tricks that the solar system literally took 2 rounds around the center of the Milky Way, or 450 million years. Dude, I respect it. The horseshoe crab was like, yes, I am perfect. I don't need to improve. I think the evolution that we should be working towards is developing cat girls. Somehow, we need to develop cat girls. I think it's very important that we work on that as a society.
Curved snout to pick off prey with ease. And for its level of speed, this creature was impressively huge, measuring over 7 meters or 23 feet, providing it a certain degree of defensive and offensive prowess against smaller and medium-sized animals. And though its teeth were designed mainly for softer prey, its size did allow for some bigger mouthfuls, like large protostegid sea turtles and even dinosaurs, specifically birds, as an Onontius was found within one stomach. However, its size did not come without risks, as it did bring the unwanted attention of true giant killers, like the Chronosaurus, with specimens being occasionally killed and partially eaten by them. There is also evidence that these ichthyosaurs prefer to stick to the southern shores like the Plesiosaurs did, too, where they remained a staple until the very bitter end, being among the last ichthyosaurs to have ever lived. So, as you can see, the Eromanga achieved quite a reputation through its own giant creatures. However, like Australia today, the prehistoric waters didn't only nail down massive monsters, but also perfected those that were just downright hard to look at. And the best example...
no, don't tell me there's gonna be some creepy-ass fucking sea spiders or something like that.
Of this were non-shark fish,
Non-shark
who for the most part
fish.
were actually pretty normal, with many kinds of halicomorphs, elapomorphs, albiliforms, and aspidorynthids calling the sea home. But a couple of times, the fish went off the deep end, literally
became
and
ugly.
metaphorically, in terms of look. For starters, there was the Zevactinus like Kuyu.
Kuyu! His name's Kuyu! Dude, I'm sorry. Of course you're gonna evolve into a weird looking motherfucker when they name you Kuyu.
To be over 8 feet or 2.5 meters long, and had a big old ugly mouth that let it swallow down prey whole that was nearly its own size.
Okay, unpopular opinion, but I would rather be a really ugly looking fish that is impressive and has cool teeth than a freaking salmon. I don't know. I feel like most fish look pretty boring, and at least these guys stand out with their looks.
So, you do the math.
Hi guys, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you!
It typically liked to stick to the surface and was equally distributed across the entire sea, even being found in narrow straits and possibly brackish water. And while it was certainly an unfriendly sight, it wasn't as disturbing as something we are quite familiar with today.
Oh,
Swordfish.
swordfish?
Yeah, their long rostrums make them a bit odd and at times dangerous. But the swordfish I'm talking about was messed up for a completely different
The
reason.
teeth!
Its teeth.
They
Now,
look
this
so
probably
weird.
sounds a bit strange, considering that modern swordfish are toothless. But in Cretaceous Australia, they were swimming dental abominations.
Just saying, because this is Australia, of course they have to have teeth. Like, there's just no way they wouldn't have them.
And before getting ahead of myself,
Oh, okay, they look kind of cute on this image though. Look at those derpy looking teeth. Wait, that's cute. I kind of like that one.
I should clarify that the swordfish I'm referring to were swordfish-like, not real ones, instead belonging to the now extinct Pachycormiform order. The one in Australia was specifically the Protosphaerina, who possessed teeth eerily similar in design to flat blades and were perfect for cutting, while being just as long as those seen in giant theropods.
Oh, what the
many
fuck
times
is that thing?
bigger than it, which may be why paleontologists originally thought that this was a dinosaur. Another odd thing about this fish was its rostrum, which was reduced in length. This could be viewed as a good thing by some, since it limited its attack range, and yet in reality, this was actually terrible news, as it played a role in this creature's horrific killing method. You see, through convergent evolution, the Protosphaerina achieved a build similar to the living swordfish, in that it was very streamlined and had massive fins that generated immense speeds.
Anytime I see this guy, I'm like, yeah, he's cool. But look at his teeth! His little teeth!
That could be greater than 55 miles
Yo, what
or
the fuck?
88 kilometers per hour. And of course, it
He's
used
going.
this speed to torpedo itself into prey, with the force being concentrated into its teeth and short-faced spear, resulting in the victim being literally sliced in half. And though not reaching the size of sharks, pliosaurs, and ichthyosaurs, this fish still was not a laughing matter, with adults touching 3 meters or 10 feet long.
Could still fuck me up. Could still absolutely fuck me up. So yeah, I'm still intimidated.
Ironically, while more
Oh
harmless
my
than
god,
the
I'm sorry, every image with the teeth. I can't. Look at them. Look at those teeth sticking out. I think I love him.
Protosphaerina, you also can't forget about Plesiosaurs,
Oh my
who
god.
looked even scarier. Here in the Eromanga Sea, they were the most successful marine group from a diversity perspective, greatly ranging in distribution and size.
This looks like a sea dinosaur. For sure. That's when I imagine an underwater dinosaur, that's what it looks like. Maybe not as derpy with those teeth, but still.
With some being over 2 tons and 7 meters,
That's
or 23
cool.
feet long, and others only being slightly longer than a human. Though not monstrous hunters like the pliosaurs or sharks were, the plesiosaurs did have one major advantage, and that was their ability to adapt to different water salinity levels. Pliosaurs, sharks, ichthyosaurs, and fish were all usually found in just salt or brackish waters. Yet plesiosaurs were known to
God, those teeth.
live in both, plus freshwater as well, being able to travel up rivers that ran into and fed the inland sea. This granted them the option to populate a multitude of environments, and meant that even the narrowest of waterways could potentially be harboring a multi-ton animal. So, yeah, no thanks. Along with their adaptability, plesiosaurs were further empowered by strong flippers, keen eyesight, drag-resistant bodies, and of course, their iconic long necks that let them sneakily prod schools of fish without scaring them off. And then to kill, their mouths were filled with dozens of small pointed teeth, perfect for catching fish and cephalopods. But unfortunately, their designs, no matter how efficient, did not stop them from becoming food for a lot of the top predators.
Let me guess. What was Chronosaurus? Chronosaurus, right? That motherfucker seemed like it would eat absolutely anything in its path.
Given just how many of the Eromanga's animals were carnivores, it truly seems that nothing was completely safe in these waters. And yet, Eromanga still managed to squeeze in impressive animals that were relatively harmless, including giant turtles, man-sized cephalopods, a plethora of fish, jellyfish, camarias, bivalves, snails, and rays. All this made Eromanga one of the liveliest bodies of water, and given that most residents were predators, you'd think that animals on land would get the message to stay far away. But in reality, they were drawn to it like moths are to a light.
Really?
And the coast of Eromanga and its surrounding environments were just as bountiful as the water. Why animals are so plentiful is not 100% certain, yet some of the potential reasons include that the sea provided food directly for certain creatures.
So I have an answer on the why. I think that when testing the world, God just put a bunch of spawners on Australia because it was kind of like far away from all the other continents. And I believe that God was just testing the different creatures that he created in Australia with spawners. And then he forgot to remove some of them when the world actually went into beta. And, you know, it kind of just all happened that way.
While also creating a myriad of different biomes that are rich in resources, like coastal forests, wetlands, mangroves, flats, and marshes. Some of the inhabitants who lived in these environments provided the world with their own dose of terror. So if you were dropped in the sea
Dinosaurs?
and somehow made it out in one piece, you'd still be screwed. Heck, even if you made it to land and didn't see anything around you.
Oh great, that fucker's gonna kill me when I get to land. I'm not safe anywhere in Australia.
There could still be danger from above, as these areas bred giants of the skies.
Oh, what? No. They have monsters in the sea. They have monsters on land and monsters in the sky? What a freaking... that's crazy.
Pterosaurs here thrived off of the fish the waters provided, and gave way to some absolute units, including the largest non-Asdarchid pterosaurs ever.
Okay, I love the flying dinosaurs though. I thought those were always super cool.
The
Literally Ark Survival Evolved.
Over 4 kinds are known to have lived in the Eromanga Basin, and they're a bit of a dying breed, being among the last of their kind to possess teeth, which were used to hunt primarily fish. But they were so plentiful, you probably couldn't have gone a day without seeing one of these guys scouring the waters and shoreline. And they were very easy to spot, considering that the largest one, the Thapungaka, had a wingspan over 7 meters or 23
What
feet
the
long.
hell?
You know,
I thought it was just a small bird. What the fuck? Everything was, the size was cranked up to 100.
in other words, twice that of the biggest bird today.
Huge.
And it possibly got even bigger, reaching 31 feet or 9.5 meters.
Holy.
And so at this size, you probably wouldn't be taking any comfort in its pestiferous diet, as even a playful nip with its needle-like teeth would not have felt great. On the shorelines, pterosaurs were joined by another group of animals that have actually remained a staple in Australia.
Alligators.
Crocodiles,
Oh.
or rather crocodilians, with 2 genera being known of, the Confractosuchus and the Icisfordia. Up until now, neither have actually been found in saltwater areas, rather spending their time in the rivers that fed the sea. But paleontologists do believe that, like the saltwater crocs of today, these two might have ventured between fresh, brackish, and saltwater, using
Crocodiles were also super old, right? Crocodiles, I think sharks are way older than crocodiles, but crocodiles have been around for a while.
ambush tactics to take out animals venturing too close to the water's edge, or even marine animals within the water itself. A more common occurrence for the Icisfordia, which sported a narrower snout, while the Confractosuchus had wider jaws that were similar to those seen in modern crocodiles. Fortunately, the one silver lining is that both weren't supersized like their contemporary, the Dinosuchus, with Icisfordia only measuring 1 meter or 3.3 feet, and the Confractosuchus being a bit bigger at around 2.5 meters or 8 feet.
That just looks like a regular crocodile.
So about the same size as your typical Komodo dragon.
Okay.
They made up for what they lacked in size with their larger-than-life diets, because these guys, namely the Confractosuchus, had skull morphologies indicating a general diet of animals bigger than itself, which apparently included dinosaurs.
I've seen a video on the Komodo dragon. It also eats shit that's way bigger, but it has like toxins that make the thing that it's attacking makes it basically rot away while still being alive, so...
As one specimen was found with an ornithopod within its abdomen, and another being unearthed right next to a sauropod.
Okay, what? I'm sorry, those look weird
An
as hell.
ornithopod within its abdomen, and another
What are those builds? What is that tiny body with that huge fat ass neck?
being unearthed right next to a sauropod that it was likely scavenging upon. Now, with all this said, though crocodilians and pterosaurs were no doubt deeply rooted in the area, it was still dinosaurs that reigned supreme on land, and they were surprisingly numerous near the Eromanga Sea, indirectly benefiting from the rich resources it provided. Additionally, the sea likely created various islands and blocked off certain sections of land, forcing many to cross or use beaches as walking paths. Located specimens show that virtually every type of dinosaur lived near Eromanga Sea,
Oh wow.
with sauropods in particular being quite widespread. And these sauropods weren't just any normal longnecks, but rather members of the infamous Titanosaur family, which to this day hold the title for the largest animals to ever walk. As of now, at least 5 genera called the land surrounding Eromanga home, including the Australotitan, Diamantinosaurus, Savannosaurus, Ostrosaurus, and the Wintotitan. Each one was well over 10 tons, and the biggest, the Australotitan, might have weighed more than 70.
Dude, if you compare it to humans, they're huge.
While growing 30 meters or 100 feet long, making it the biggest Australian animal ever, and about 7 times the size of a large elephant. These absolute units
16
likely fed on
times the
trees and
detail.
foliage provided by coastal forests, and based on fossil locations, typically stuck by rivers and near beaches.
Huge.
There
They're
is also
so big.
evidence that it was fairly normal for a sauropod to die close enough to the sea that it eventually got dragged out by waves. With
I thought bro was just going swimming, not gonna lie. I thought they were trying to swim.
thinking they may have played a huge role in underwater communities, acting a bit like a prehistoric whale fall. And tracks further suggest that groups often walked along the coast, frequently bringing them into close proximity with aquatic life. And sure enough, even Chronosaurus, sharks, and Plesiosaurs have been found relatively close to sauropod skeletons. And it appears that these giants' preference for water extended to other herbivorous dinosaurs as well, including the Conbarosaurus, Vtuberosaurus, iguanodontids, multiple unidentified ornithopods, and ankylosaurs.
Oh,
Now sure, these
that one I remember from Ark.
dinosaurs aren't the most scary or dangerous, but they were still probably not the animal you'd want to provoke. And they were by no means alone, as you did of course have meat-eating theropods that prowled the coastlines as well. And they were regrettably the worst kind possible.
Oh
the
no.
Megaraptors. If you've seen my recent video, you know why I say the worst. And if you haven't, you should. But here's a little refresher. Megaraptors were a clade of carnivorous dinosaurs that had giant sickle claws, not on their feet, but their hands. That in combination with giant powerful arms, allowed Megaraptors
To
essentially
slap people.
become Freddy Kruegers, slashing and impaling prey, which they would then literally eat like skewered kebabs while alive.
What the hell? That's sick. Yo, that's cool.
Oh, and don't forget that they also had extremely hollowed bones that made them much lighter than they should have been, resulting in them essentially being the cheetahs of their time, just a lot more horrifying.
That's crazy.
And of course,
they
in
were
true
fast.
Australian fashion, there couldn't be only one Megaraptoran. Oh no, there had to be a couple, with at least one being identified and named, while the others remain undescribed. The classified genus, Australovenator, meaning southern hunter, is coincidentally the biggest Australian theropod known thus far, weighing around 310 kilos or 680 pounds, and reaching 6 meters or 20 feet long. Thanks to its build, if this predator spotted you at close distance, you'd probably have no hope in outrunning it, and you wouldn't just have to worry about being skewered, seeing that it also possessed
Sitting
serrated,
inside the
recurved
corpse.
teeth that let it easily gobble up animals and cut through their flesh like butter. It's honestly only natural that in prehistoric Australia, you'd have a group of predators ruling land that were nearly as creepy as the ones below.
I mean, that makes
And even
sense,
though
yeah.
they haven't been discovered in the Eromanga Basin, there is the chance that many other kinds of theropods kept the surrounding land a death trap as well, with the Laphosaurinids and Tyrannosauroids both being found not so far from where the sea was situated.
You know, I was always like, oh my god, Ark Survival Evolved is crazy. Why is there so many dinosaurs? It was just legit. There's really that many just roaming around, I guess.
Then, to tie it all together, on top of the endless carnivores, there was also danger from Mother Nature itself.
Of course.
You see, for much of the early Cretaceous, Australia would have dealt with rampant flooding as the sea expanded, ruining animals, and in some cases, causing mass drownings. There's even one discovery that hints at a group of dinosaurs which ended up trampling one another during a likely attempt to outrun a flood. Frequent volcanic eruptions and subsequently tsunamis were also a thing too, as during the later days, volcanic activity in the region began to tick upwards. On land, this meant ash clouds, lava flows, and other unpleasantries. Yet it was really in the sea where animals suffered, since the volcanism resulted in the continent's edges lifting up, which began to slowly dry the inland sea, and thus dooming many. And ultimately, it's thought that this was the final nail in the coffin for the Eromanga Sea, with it shrinking a little bit more every single day.
Rest in peace.
Until eventually, it became completely replaced by vast floodplains, with researchers estimating that it disappeared by the time the Albian stage ended, marking the so-called extinction of one of the scariest places to ever exist. Thanks for watching, and until next time on ExtinctZoo.
That was great. I'm not surprised that there was even more monsters in Australia. Even in the past. I guess Australia has always been and will always be a death trap, and that's okay.